Welcome to the After Dark podcast, the podcast in which Anthony leads his unknowing friend Konrad by the hand through TV shows. Will Konrad like them? Will Konrad hate them? Will Konrad predict what's going to happen, or will he be lost in the dark? Find out now, only on the After Dark podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James. I haven't said that for a while. And that's Konrad. How are you, Konrad?
Hello there, I'm doing fine. I've just got back from a bike ride. I'm fresh as a daisy. I'm ready to talk about some OA goodness.
OA goodness. Oh, I'm glad to hear the goodness there. So obviously, this is the final episode of the first season. Konrad and I actually haven't talked about this off air, so let's talk about it now. For Dark, we actually did a Konrad's Theory Matrix episode.
Yeah.
Between the seasons. Now, I don't really want to do a full episode of Konrad's Theory Matrix. So what I was going to say to you today, Konrad, is in the roundup, we could actually focus on your theories. Obviously, we'll not go through them to the same extent we did on the Dark ones, but we will go through them and say what you got right, what you got wrong today. What do you think?
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine. I was going to say I've only got maybe 10 concluded to go through. So yeah, I think that sounds like a solid plan to me.
Okay, awesome. So we'll go through, maybe we'll do all the concluded ones, and we do the usual thing, guys, where Konrad will tell me the theory. I'll have to say whether I think he got it right or wrong, or what he gave himself,
yeah.
and then we'll sort of resolve it from there. If there's also, Konrad, a couple of theories you wanted to mention, which you still have active as well, you don't have to mention them all, but just sort of ones of note later on, afterwards as well, we can have a look at those. All right, guys, we've got plenty to get into today. So could you please subscribe to the reboot? Could you please subscribe to the Culture Cave? Click that little red button down there. Ring the bell. Haven't said that. Like the video, it really does help. If you want to subscribe on podcasting apps, if you want to listen to us in the car, all that sort of thing. I do want to apologize. I think I probably should have apologized last week, but when we recorded it, I didn't know it. Episode 6 was a little late up. There was something on the audio apps. There was something wrong with the scheduling there. I think I put in PM, not AM, so it was going to come in. I don't know what happened. So basically, it's up now. Enjoy it. Suck on those little earphones of yours and stick them in your ear.
Yeah, get that saliva flowing.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to do. It's better sound. These microphones, guys, you paid for these microphones for us. Get the quality out of them. Suck on the mic. Suck on your earphone. Shove it in.
Listen, Hap's a scientist and he does it. So there must be some science behind it.
There must be. All right, okay, so send us an email, adpodmail@gmail.com if you want to. If you want to send us a question for Konrad, you can either do that through the email, or you could also put it on underneath this video for the next episode, which is the first episode of Season 2, which I'm sure we're going to get a lot of theories about in this one. Right, Konrad, are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
The season finale of Season 1 of the OA opens with Hap getting arrested.
It does, and there's something I'm going to mention here that I haven't really focused on at all, to be honest, in this show, which is the use of dissolves in the OA. I really like how often they use them. It's an editing technique you don't see all that often these days, and they use it quite a lot. It reminds me of something like Kubrick, like The Shining, and we get a lovely one to open this episode with like the sort of helicopter shot of the quarry dissolving into the back of Hap's head as the cop approaches and
Stan.
That's Stan. That's right. Rumbles him, and yeah, I didn't see this going the way that it initially went, although it ended the way I expected it to end.
Yeah, let's just say that. But so. Yeah. You obviously was just, your prediction was that he would kill Stan.
Yeah, that cop 100% wasn't making it out of this conflict alive.
So, but I like the way you didn't sort of see coming the little twist they gave it, which was really cool, and that was that the Silver Tongue Hap, as Stan puts it, lets him know that he has people that the people in the basement can actually heal his wife, because we know his wife has ALS.
Yeah.
And obviously this man would give anything to have his wife back, so it puts in a real like a few weeks ago on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, we were talking about trolley problems because the film Passengers. Go and listen to that if you want to. And this is a real like trolley problem in my mind as well. Like, would you save your wife?
They set it up as one. Like I think I have a slight issue with the writing here because they very much establish it as that binary. It's like you either let these people heal your wife and leave them in captivity, or you arrest Hap. And I feel like there's very much a middle ground here where he just lets them heal his wife and there's like, right, you're still under arrest. Like he's a police officer with a gun. Like he has all the power here. But yeah, you're right. The show is very much like establishing that binary, and I think I understand why they do it, because it makes the decision that Homer and Prairie ultimately make to help her, regardless of the fact that they know it means that they may well stay in captivity, much more selfless and much more impactful as a result.
Yeah, just to add to you there, though, one thing I just thought of, it's I'm like, okay, so whenever they're doing the dance, or it's not a dance, doing the movements around her body, and the police officer's still got the gun on Hap, at that stage, what does the police officer think Hap is offering to the situation?
Yeah, like I could just arrest you now. Like they seem to be doing all the work here. So like, well, like get in the car.
You've already given me all the information I need, Hap. Like, it actually wasn't too clever of Hap. To be honest with you.
He's played his entire hand early. Like he's kept nothing back, and for some reason Stan just lets him sit there without handcuffs on or anything, which wasn't all that believable. But to be honest, this entire scene worked for me. Like I think there are some holes in it which when you start picking it apart, you can see the flaws in it. But I think it worked. I think emotionally there's a lot to it. I love the score. This kind of like swelling violin music. There's a couple of great instances of music really coming to the fore in this episode. But it really worked for me here to kind of heighten the emotion of the scene. And then there's some pretty crazy stuff we actually hear from. Don't know if I wrote her name down, but Stan's wife when she wakes.
Evelyn.
Evelyn, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Evelyn. Yeah. So, like talking about this small white light, which is something that I think is used to depict and afterlife kind of power, afterlife-ish kind of power, like whether that's God or something else, frequently. So that seems to be what that's going at. Talking about, so I've got a theory coming out of this. So Evelyn says she sees when I can't remember what. No, it's when she was young, right? She has a near-death experience, and she saw a white light. Yeah, when she was a child. She saw a
young child.
So she saw a little girl in the light, and she was told that one day you will help two captive angels. And I feel like the little girl was probably Prairie. I feel like it's kind of leaning into my God is missing theory, preacher thing, where I feel like Prairie is a lot more significant than she realizes, maybe because she has amnesia or something like that. But I think the little girl that Evelyn spoke to in this other place was actually Prairie. And I'm ashamed to admit that when she talks about imbibing the fifth movement, it took me until her saying, I swallowed a white moth, to realise, Homer swallowed a sea urchin. That's how he got the other movement. So all of them are like swallowing animals, which seem to... that I'm sure there's a metaphor for what they are swallowing and the movement that it gives them and what the movement actually does. It's kind of lost on me a little bit, but that was Evelyn saying, I swallowed a white moth, made me realise, that's what gives them the movement.
So, because obviously Prairie had the dove too. Yeah. So, what's interesting to me is I think there is a little bit there to the idea that is Prairie in her vision or her NDE. I'm not going to say whether or not that's confirmed in the show, but what I notice is there seems to be a little bit of a kinship between Evelyn and Prairie.
Yeah.
Like she says, you're finally here. Yeah. When she first wakes up. Also, it's a really nice moment, which is sort of showing a little bit of a transference of something, possibly. I don't really know, but anyway, it's transference of importance, possibly. Evelyn is... Now, we're skipping over an awful lot that I do want to come back to, but I will just mention this. Evelyn gets to hug Stan before getting shot.
Yeah.
So the last time that she gets to hold her husband is actually correlated at the exact same moment as the first time Prairie gets to hold Homer.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'd not drawn that line of comparison. But yeah, that is... And to be honest, I was really grateful. We'll go back to the Evelyn Prairie stuff in a second, but I was grateful. I criticise this show for being overwritten sometimes, but one instance where I appreciated them writing something explicitly was when Prairie says in the voiceover as she is retelling the story that it was the first time she got to hold Homer, because the significance of that, just seeing it was, I hadn't actually thought about it, to be honest, that she'd never got to hold him before. So I was glad that was in the screenplay, and as you say, it draws a pretty obvious comparison between Evelyn and Stan at the end of their life and Prairie and Homer, I guess, at the beginning of theirs in a certain way.
Yeah.
The beginning of a new chapter in their life.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever had them start doing the movements, and stands there with the gun looking over his shoulder in the monitor, thinking, what on earth are they doing?
Yeah.
I just really thought that we were missing, like, from Dark, Egon coming in and being like, Satanism, you know?
Yeah, someone like Stan's partner comes in and was like, what in the hag? And like, I'm not actually gonna. I was gonna swear then, and I'd like, I'm not gonna do it because this is a family-friendly podcast. But yeah, coming in and like unleashing like a stream of profanities as they walk in. I don't know why they'd suddenly be like a Texan sheriff, but that's what I was imagining happening.
Doing some sort of devil magic.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Y'all need Jesus, and then like firing into the air.
Like, it shows how on the end of his tether in terms of wanting to help his wife Stan was, because that was completely out of the box, we'll just say, in the nicest possible way. When he sees someone saying, no, trust me, like, this'll be good, this'll heal her.
Yeah.
It's like, is this the medicine you got from Europe? Like, what is this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he does just kind of... I think the show and the performance have done enough to make me believe that he would try this on faith, I think, because he's clearly a man at the end of his tether. You know, as you say, he's out of options at this point. He's willing to try whatever. I think the one flaw I see in this scene is, as I've said, I don't think it's as binary as the show is making it out to be.
Yeah, exactly. It is one of those moments where you just go, what if they just did this, you know?
Yeah. But as it turns out, it doesn't matter, because they both get shot anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Before we leave this scene, though, I just want to say that I sort of noticed that because they were more practiced, possibly, but also because they were, like, properly putting their full feeling into it, I felt. Like, you know how Prairie said you have to put in perfect feeling? I felt they were really putting the feeling in. Like, they actually probably achieved what they wanted to a lot quicker than, say, like, I know they were literally bringing Scott back from death, so that did take a long time. But this only took, maybe they ran through the movements maybe 3 or 4 times, and then it actually worked.
I mean, so. I think Evelyn is the one that says, and in fairness, she's talking about this idea of like traveling, but actually no, maybe it's Prairie says this in the voiceover. I didn't write down who said it, but talking about the idea of force of will, and only someone with like kind of great determination can swim to the other side of, you know, the dimensional rift. But I think that probably applies to the movements as well. Like when you're when you kind of leverage your full force of your personality and your will into these movements, you're probably able to achieve what you're trying to much quicker than Prairie and Homer initially did when they were bringing Scott back from the dead.
Yep, that makes sense to me. And it was Evelyn who said that.
It was Evelyn, okay.
And also, I think that was them showing us where Prairie got that from, because Prairie had been saying that to the boys a couple of times. Yeah. So it shows her that she didn't just like get that from nowhere.
Yeah.
Prairie, again, knocking the Mary Sue comments out of the way. All right, so she grabs her hand, all that sort of thing goes on.
I just want to say one thing as well. Those Mary Sue comments, I know it was one of our listeners who'd like kind of heard that from somewhere else and was repeating it, so I don't want them to think that I'm coming at them with
they
this.
Actually said in there, I do want to say it again, in their comment, they said that she wasn't a Mary Sue, or it doesn't actually matter.
You've just reminded me that there are some people out there in the ether who have leveraged that as a criticism, and it kind of blows my mind that a show can be so explicitly about this mysterious figure with a kind of past shrouded in secrecy, who is clearly like some kind of secret celestial being, literally mastering the ability to travel through dimensions, and the show is about revealing her origins, and people are like, fucking Mary Sue. It's like, have you never heard of like a mystery before? Like we're literally learning about this character. Well,
to be honest with you, Konrad, I think the problem is every now and then you do get a character who, male or female, who possibly is a bit too overpowered, for no real reason, and you possibly could leverage those accusations towards them.
Yeah.
The problem is that whenever you're called out as being sexist for that, and then you say, "What are you talking about? I'm not sexist," and then you're like, "But you also said it about Prairie and the OA, so you can't have it both ways here."
I mean, we all know that the real Mary Sue in this series is Steve, because it is utterly implausible to me that he would get a girl, not just one girlfriend, but 2 girlfriends in the space of a season.
What do you mean it's implausible? You're falling in love with him.
That is true. I'm only jealous. I'm jealous of Steve for his sweet stunt skills, his sweet parkour skills.
Exactly, he's so cool. All right, so Hap actually drives Prairie away after this.
This was nuts. He just drives her off. I couldn't believe this. I was like, you're just dumping her by the side. I thought there was going to be some, portal and she was going to get displaced or something, but it's literally just like, nope, screw you. I've got the 5th movement on your bike.
I've got a theory why he dumped her, but I can't really tell you until a couple episodes into season 2.
Or rather than killing her, or...
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I think she is... I think the next season is going to be about her pursuing Hap and the others, and I think he's taken them somewhere. I think he has travelled with them by the end of this, so I wonder if it's just to slow her down, maybe, in her pursuit of him. It is interesting to me that I when I stop and think about it, I'm like, I don't know if I believe that he'd kill her, because he clearly has an emotional connection to her. But there are ways in which he could have slowed her down or stopped her from chasing him that would have been far more definitive than like driving her off and dumping her by the side of the road and essentially freeing her.
Yeah, okay. As I say, I've got a little theory about that, but we'll wait and see. Okay, so it was interesting actually. The story ends, and then the whole town's in the room. Were
just there. They like, I wonder how long they've been there for, to be honest.
Just listening to the whole thing.
Of course, they come in at the moment that Prairie's wielding a knife with a shirt off. Like they don't understand the context of the situation. All right, it all makes sense.
They didn't come in when she was giving Steve some like leadership training. She didn't, she
didn't come in when she was getting stabbed in the leg. That's when they needed her. That's when she needed them. Yeah,
it's true actually. Yeah, but they come in. They sort of. It basically it takes Prairie off the board in a way. We're fully now in the present day. We finally got there, Konrad, where you said we would be after an episode or 2. We finally got to the point where we are in present day in both stories. Okay, so basically, she gets taken away by Nancy. There's an interesting shot, like a sort of little shot. It's a couple of shots actually, but there's one main long one where her and Nancy are just walking back to the house, sort of silently. And it's almost as if Prairie is a bit shell-shocked herself that she's been discovered in that vulnerable moment. What do you think of that?
I was trying to kind of place where her vulnerability came from in retelling that, whether it's just such an emotionally charged moment in her past, and obviously the last time she saw Homer, or whether there's something more to it that I'm missing. But there's certainly... there's definitely a vulnerability to her that has kind of thrown her off her game, so to speak.
Okay, so I do have another theory about that as well, but I don't know if I can say it because I don't know how you read this episode, so I have to wait to see.
Okay.
How you read stuff.
Okay.
But also, like the way I read the episode the first time I watched the show, and then like. I'll talk about it later on, but I'll just say now, and you can think about it before we get there. I actually thought when the series ended that there wasn't going to be a season 2, and I thought that this was like a really good ending of a one.
Yeah, I think I can't remember if we've said that on the show or not, or whether you said it to me off air. But like, I do kind of agree with you. I think you could. The ending is ambiguous enough, and it doesn't really. I mean, it's a bit of a cliffhanger, but not really at the same time. Like you can kind of. Draw your own conclusions.
Fill in some gaps and draw your own conclusions.
Yeah,
you can. But obviously, we'll talk about the ending more. But I think I'm interested. I like that you agree with me there, because when Emma and I watched it, we very much thought. We honestly, when they announced season 2, we were like, "What? I thought it was a one series story,
one and done."
Obviously, season 2 came out then, and there's a lot of tie-ins with stuff that they had in season 1.
Okay.
So it was all planned, I think. Well, to a certain extent, they knew they were going to do a season 2. So okay, so we get Prairie as actually inspecting the stab wound that that Steve did for her, and it was interesting to me. Actually, what do you think about this first? I've got in trouble. I've got in trouble before giving my thoughts for you, so you go first.
I liked the actually no, is this the top down shot in the bath? I can't remember if it was in this scene where you get like the top down shot of her in the bath.
No, that's later on.
That's later when she's having a dream, isn't it? Yeah. So I think really the only thing I took from this scene was that it's kind of gnarly watching her pull bits of pencil graphite out of her leg. I didn't really see that coming, and as someone who's a fan of gore, even in movies, that was a bit much for me, to be honest. So
yeah, in movies, let's in movies, not in real life.
I'm a sadomasochist.
Yeah,
but not really.
Ding. So I actually obviously I've seen this a number of times, so I finally was looking at the scene. I was like, right, okay, let's try and get some symbols. Let's try and get some analysis going in this scene. And I thought to myself, if you think about it, right, it's like she's pulling shrapnel out of her leg. What type of films or stories do we see that in? And it's usually in like a war film, where they've just went through bloody like a rain of fire, or they've just like had a huge gunfight and went through something horrible and life altering, which could possibly give you PTSD, and then they're sort of having to get shrapnel pulled out of them afterwards. And I kind of maybe saw something there. It's sort of the calm after the storm, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't, from a pure storytelling perspective or a visual storytelling perspective, you don't show someone pulling fragments of whatever out of a wound unless you want to remind them of the situation in which they got that wound. So it's definitely showing that, she bears both physical and I suspect emotional scars from not just the stuff that happened with Hap and in the basement, but also with sharing that knowledge with the boys in BBA, I think.
Yeah, yep, I would agree. Okay, so Nancy and Abel go to French's house. Eventually they get him. He's delayed for a while. And then French says, don't worry, I'm going to prove it's all true, her story. And this obviously shocks Nancy, because Nancy's like, she told you?
This is the beginning of what I'm going to entitle my hashtag Fearful for French episode, because as soon as he said this, I was like, oh, French, you're such a good guy, and you've got such prospects ahead of you, and you've got this. It's a bad habit. It's a good quality, but it's going to get him into trouble one of these days of sort of taking problems onto his shoulders and taking responsibility for them when others are incapable of doing it for themselves. And this was yet another one of those, and it made me start being very worried about what was going to happen to French in this episode, to be honest.
Okay, yeah. Well, we've seen when Steve was highlighted as being a great guy. So what happened to him? 50 grand took to get him out of that.
50, yeah, that 50 grand could have paid for some acting lessons for Steve, like, to be honest. So like
yeah. All right, okay, so the family go to a hotel for some privacy.
Yep.
All the press is still asking her, how did you get your sight back? Like that probably would be a big question.
Yeah, that's fairly important.
That's fairly important. So there's a really nice is the wrong word, but a really effective moment here when they first come into the hotel room, and there's a real silent thing of dressing the bed and getting the bed ready, and then saying we need a duvet, and then the fact that there was no duvet there, Abel then just
like folds down inwards, yeah. Like, and I feel like that's a really a very accurate depiction of how breakdowns happen. Like, it's just like the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he just crumples, which is the first time we've really seen him have any kind of emotional response. I'm trying to think back actually to the first episode when Prairie first shows up, whether he is particularly, obviously he's happy, but whether he's particularly kind of emotional. I don't recall him being. He's quite a stoic figure, Abel, for the most part. But yeah, he's struggling here.
Yeah, and that was the impactfulness for me, is the fact that he's sort of been holding it together, with Nancy going crazier by the day, wanting to know what happened to Prairie, wanting to help her, but not quite knowing how. Abel's kind of just a rock in the family, and this is him finally breaking. That's why it was so impactful to me. But Prairie then, in a way, in a lovely moment again, like it really impacted me a lot when I first saw it. in when she like there was enough of a silence. You know, they waited and they were patient with it, and then finally she said, "I was in a basement," and she started telling them what happened. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and it's just, Prairie embodies empathy, and this is another example of that, where she reads the situation and is able to plug the emotional gap with something that helps to both diffuse it and to potentially help Nancy and Abel move on from it, or not, if not move on, at least understand it better.
Yep, exactly. Then Nancy makes probably the worst decision of most characters
Nancy,
in the show.
timing on it. Like, just keep this one under your hat for a couple of weeks. Nancy.
Like, she waited to the morning and then, like, literally in the same room as Prairie, Abel!
Yeah. Psst. Like, listen,
Yeah,
I've been lying to you for 10 years, Abel, and I need to tell you this morning is the morning that I need to tell you that I kept the letter from you, which was a point in the theory matrix. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, because Nancy's just like, all right, I know, like, I kind of want our family to be fractured again. Like, I know we're all back together now. We're all sort of, like, now, but I kind of want to fuck it up again. Can we do that, Abel?
Prairie did a great job with, like, telling her story to bring it to unify us for a little bit, but here I come with a sledgehammer to just ruin everything.
Yeah, so, obviously, it was that Abel didn't know about the letter because Nancy kept it from him. The letter said that she was going to go find her father. Yeah. Abel then goes down and gets some waffles.
Oh my! It did give. I was going to say it gives us the immortal line: "I'm busy, Nance. I'm making a waffle," which it's just like.
And then I'm going to.
Then I'm going to eat it. It's like, Abel, you get yourself a waffle. Like, it's just like that. I've never has the phrase "I'm making a waffle" been said with such passive aggression before.
Yeah, I like also the line, obviously less hilarious, but actually very, very effective line is when he said, "You lied about the note because you were worried about her choice of words. Yeah. She disappeared, and you thought I would have that on my mind." You know, just a realistic line of just. I love when a character just like cuts through the bullshit of whatever's happening and just being like, seriously, come on.
But it's also, I think, really good characterization for these two characters as well, because Nancy. Well, as this argument develops, we find out that one of the reasons she chose Prairie was because she was blind, because having lost a child, she couldn't bear the idea of another child leaving her behind, even, emotionally and physically through the act of growing up. So she thought that because Prairie was blind, she would always depend upon her. And I feel like her need to have a child be dependent on her is reflected in her taking the decision not to expose Hap, that's a Freudian slip, expose Abel to the potential pain of her going to find her quote-unquote real father, because if the role was reversed and, Prairie was like, I'm going to go find my real mother, Nancy would have been utterly destroyed by that because of that sort of... I guess insecurities, but it's a sort of I'm not sure if insecurity is really the real term for it, but because of that feeling that Nancy harbours, so she makes the incredibly selfish decision to try and protect Abel from it, even though he doesn't need protecting from it because he doesn't have that insecurity. And I think it's a really, really good moment between those two characters. Yeah.
When you made that Freudian slip there and said Hap instead of Abel, my head immediately went to like Peter Pan and how Mr. Darling is kind of Captain Hook. And that sort of is funny because Jason Isaacs is of course Captain Hook. So
is he Captain Hook?
Yeah.
What's he Captain Hook in? The new one? Did they make a new one?
Peter Pan. It came out in like 2005 or something like that.
Oh, I have no memory of that movie at all.
I think Freddie Highmore is in it.
Is he as good as Dustin Hoffman?
He's actually very good. Yeah, he is. I don't know if he's good as Dustin Hoffman actually from Hook, but it's actually a serviceable Peter Pan film. To be honest with you,
okay,
serviceable Peter Pan film. Let's just highlight that before I get a comment. Okay, so Prairie tries to phone.
This is great.
Betty Broderick Allen, Steve Winchell, and then she. How about French?
Yeah, French. I don't know.
Yeah. Alfonso. He doesn't know his last name.
I feel like this is mirrored in the next scene as well, where it's like people just being like, I don't know, I have a first name, or in Prairie's case, she doesn't even have a first name. She has like a nickname to start off with, and it's just like, what do you think anyone's going to do with this information, Prairie? And then
Yeah.
it goes straight from that scene into like, I don't want to jump ahead, but it goes straight from this scene into Steve phoning, which is actually not a bad idea, phoning like the ALS Society, being like, Evelyn, you must have an Evelyn there. It's like, do you understand how many people have ALS, Steve? Like, there's probably a few Evelyns like that the ALS Society is aware of.
There's 500,000 quarries in North America. There's going to be a few Evelyns, I'll tell you that.
There's one quarry for every person in America. That's how it works.
So next up, we have them looking up through the things, as you said. They found a Scott Brown who went missing in 2005.
Yeah.
Which is obviously wrong because they would have only been there. Scott would have only been there maybe from 2007 or 8. The date wasn't right. So it didn't really work out. However, they finally, after all these weeks or months or whatever, finally took the idea of Googling anesthesiologist and pilot.
Yeah.
And all I thought of was, is that a Google whack?
It's got to be bloody close to it if it isn't. There can't be that many that like where they have both professions.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing. Like they were sort of expecting it to be Google whack, anesthesiologist, pilot, and then like imagine like they clicked enter and then just Hap's face was there.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
with like one of those like RAF leather jackets and like a silk scarf next to his plane.
No. He's actually wearing like, you know, The Rock when he wore the turtleneck, the big chain, and then the bum bag.
Oh yeah, Jason Isaac doing that. But this is,
that
great.
would be great.
Bring back the bum bag / fanny pack if you're American. This is a slight aside, but when I last went to America, which was when I was like 11 years old, my dad swore by his bum bag, like, and he made us all wear them and basically like carry our passports in them around with us at like Disney World, which is just like, what are you doing, Dad? Like, you don't need this. Pockets work just fine.
Yeah, I did own at least one bum bag as a child.
Oh, I had several.
Yeah, you got to have one for each day. Okay, so
they find a Japanese video of Prairie playing a violin in the subway as well, which
eventually, that's what I was gonna say.
I question why, like, there would be
tourism.
A Japanese video of this. To be honest, this
not New York. It's tourism.
That is true, yeah, but it's distinctly not remarkable violin playing. To be honest,
I know. Well, actually, the funny thing is I think it was Frack and Toast the Lover gave us a bit of shit about that in the last comment section. Couldn't believe that we didn't find that transcendental.
Oh, what, the violin playing?
Not the violin playing, Rachel singing. Because Rachel is actually an artist. The actress who plays Rachel is actually an artist, Sharon Van Etten. She's actually a singer. Which is like great voice. I would listen to it. Don't get me wrong. Did it take me to another plane of reality? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I want that Fifth Element style operas.
Did Rachel have stones in her belly? Yeah. That's what we need to know.
That's the standard by which she's
That's
being
why
judged.
She didn't get a movement. She's important in another way.
Yeah. It's like she's been swallowing stones rather than moths.
Yeah. Living Rachel, living. Every time she goes in, she just eats another stone.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so French climbs into the window of Prairie's house, goes up, and finds the books.
I was so nervous during this scene because in my head, so French has established, that he's a good guy, that he's trying to help, and then he breaks into a house, and we've already established that Abel has a gun and is ready to use it. And like, I this is honest, I'm not bullshitting here. As soon as he broke in, I was like, shit, Abel's going to come back and fucking shoot him. As like a burglar. But instead, fortunately, he just finds the books and all is well. What
do you think about these books?
I think this was a bit clumsily done, to be honest. I think that they're trying to sow the seeds of doubt that, maybe Prairie has usual suspected them, and she's like some Kaiser Soze who's just been pulling things out of posters that she's seeing to construct this story, and that she's crazy. And I think it totally could have worked. I think they needed to do this earlier. I don't think they gave it enough time, because basically this narrative arc is resolved in half an hour. Like, by the end of this episode, they've resolved this, which I don't think is enough time.
Have they?
I mean,
That gives me an inkling into your reading of it, actually.
Well, I mean, the movement, them doing the movements at the end implies to me that they're particularly French implies to me that okay, like we do believe her.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
So.
Yeah. I think I agree with you.
Yeah, like I think I totally think this could have worked. I would have liked this like an episode or two before, just so we get a bit of time to let this doubt breathe. And to be honest, it kind of blindsided me a bit because I think personally my read of it was that like I know. Yeah, I'm gonna say I know. I'd never have even questioned whether Prairie is a reliable narrator. So these ideas being thrown in here that maybe she's wrong. To me, they were going. I expected them to be in service of some kind of dramatic irony, where we as the audience know that she's telling the truth, but French questions it, and I don't think it really goes in that direction either. It's just like French isn't sure, and then by the end of it, he is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Maybe like they could have, they could have possibly restructured it. I know they wanted to end episode 6 with the gun at Hap's head. They wanted to have episode 7 be just about the present day with the boys.
Yeah.
And therefore they had to start episode 8 with Hap and the gun again. So I understand why they did what they did, but I know what you mean. They could have maybe put the boys questioning it in episode 6, which to beef that out a little bit more, because it was only half an hour, remember?
Yeah.
Like that's where it could have went. Having said that, for me, it didn't ring hollow for me. I actually did enjoy this little end of the season. Because for me, talking about whether if it was only one season, the fact that it was in there was like, okay, it gives you enough space now for this to be a one and done. But the fact that they came back for a second season, I think in that context, possibly I agree with you that they could have introduced it earlier.
So at the end of the first season, like viewing this, did you have in your head the idea that maybe she's just made it all up? Did that make you think that was a possibility?
Yeah, possibility. Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's maybe it's because I know there's a second season, but that thought just never crossed my mind at all as a possibility. So maybe that's why this didn't work for me.
Okay, interesting. I think, but I will say as well, my own experience watching it the first time when she started to explain to Abel and Nancy about where she was. And she said that the room she was in was about the same size as the room that they were in. I was like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
You need to work on your sense of scale, Prairie.
So when she said that, I was like, oh my God, she's actually going to explain what really it was like. It wasn't actually the glass walls and everything, like, you know. But then she went on to talk about the little stream and everything. I was like, oh, okay, so actually, no.
Yeah, they've just screwed up their measurements here because that room is clearly far bigger than a hotel room.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so when French then sees the books, he goes and looks in the mirror and he sees Homer.
Sorry, got a cat on stream.
That's all right.
Sorry, carry on.
What does the cat think about seeing Homer in the mirror?
Indy, what do you think about seeing Homer in the mirror? I don't think Indy watched it, to be honest, but yeah. I did not. I don't know what to make of that, frankly. It's yeah. I don't know. I literally saw that and I was like, wow, that's weird. It's definitely striking, but I'm not entirely sure what that's saying. I guess it's he's replacing. He's seeing it himself, his reflection being replaced by Homer. So I guess the implication is that at this point he's questioning whether the story is real or where. And I guess this is a continuation of that maybe he's thinking Homer is a reflection of us as individuals or him as an individual. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see if anything else comes of that, because that was a really striking visual to just kind of throw away in this thing that's resolved kind of half an hour later, if it is indeed resolved. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Riz Ahmed, character name and actor name, he came along. What did you make of his little scene?
Why was he there?
We might touch upon that on the questions from the.
Okay, because I was just like, do you often just roll up in your patients' houses at night when they're not around? But yeah, I mean, it's I was very suspicious of his character here. I was like, you seem like a really nice guy, Riz Ahmed, but this is not a scene that you should be turning up in. Like, you have apparently keys to her house, and then the fact that
Keys to her house. Did it mention that?
Well, I mean, he's in her house, so presumably
he would have had to climb through the window.
Well, he's either come in the same window French has. But I was very, and the fact that the things he's saying are kind of like disarmingly nice. So, you know, if he was there for a good reason, you wouldn't be like, oh, you know, you're French, you know, you've taken on the secondhand trauma. I think what he's saying is kind of truthful, but he's clearly trying to direct.
I thought it was very, very powerful what he said, actually.
No, I think it was, but I think in my head I was also kind of thinking, this feels like he's trying to direct the conversation towards French and what French has done for Prairie, as opposed to focusing on what Riz Ahmed is doing in this house on his own at night. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Okay. Okay, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually can't remember the first time I watched in terms of my feeling towards that. Having rewatched it, I know where the story goes, but having rewatched it, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I can understand why that's a bit mental.
Yeah, yeah. Just let himself in. Just let him.
We've got to give Riz.
Yeah, we've got to get. Yeah, that's how the writers' room went. They were like, "Can we put Riz Ahmed in any of these scenes without the audience questioning it too much?" And then Britt Marling piped up and was like, "Put him in the Prairie house." And everyone was like, "Genius! Put him in." Like he just. I mean, she leaves her door open all the time, so maybe he was just driving home and he went to check up on her and wandered in.
Yeah, exactly. Or it could have also been that he heard about what happened at the house with the stabbing in the leg and all that sort of thing, and thought, I'll go around check up on her.
Yeah, and then wander in.
Yeah, wander in the window.
Yeah,
just fall over and slip in the window.
Yeah.
Okay, so French shows the other boys the books. I think we've talked a little bit about this. There's not really much to say. Buck keeps the Angels book, I suppose.
Yeah. Buck keeps the Angels book, and I think there's a general sense that, like, already they're kind of dismissing French's skepticism at this point, I think. So, yeah, I will be really interested to see if this comes back at all, or whether it was just kind of a slightly mishandled arc, because it felt, as I say, it felt like it was being resolved the moment the scene where it was introduced ended, almost.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Okay, so she's back on the meds, Prairie. She's back on the meds.
Yeah.
And she is applied for a lot of courses. She's got into some creative writing courses. You know, she enjoyed the storytelling. And then she's also got an ankle tag on.
She's got a great electronic bracelet, which
does go in the bath, apparently. So
it's waterproof, so that's fine.
It's waterproof, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of a time skip that doesn't require a 5 years later across the screen or whatever. You know, clearly some time has passed here because she's medicated, and Abel and her are talking to each other relatively normally, and she has her bracelet on as well. But it's quite a natural time skip.
That is part of the reason for me why I felt like this could have been a one and done, because the time skip at the end is kind of like a let's see where they are now. You know, it's like a sort of a wrap up at the end. You know, that usually happens in the last episode of a season's.
Yeah, definitely. It like could feel like an epilogue. Totally. And that was the sense. It's a weird end to this episode. So I have a very mixed feeling. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I have very mixed feelings on this episode because the good in it is really good. But then there's stuff like this where it felt like, you know, I checked the runtime, and we got to this scene. I was like, okay, there's about 10 minutes left of this episode. It doesn't really feel like we're reaching any kind of conclusion here. We're kind of drifting into an epilogue, like you said. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just going to be this, and it's going to be a really sort of gentle drift out. And then suddenly it's like, oh shit!
So we've got a few details to touch upon, but we can talk about the big thing now if you want to. So,
well, I wanted to get. So, okay, I'll say there was something I wanted to say before we get to the big thing, because I wanted to go through like my kind of thoughts as it's being revealed, because it was kind of crazy to me, and I did see I managed to sort of predict a lot of it coming, but it's not in like a theory matrix kind of way, in like a kind of the show has done a really good job of suddenly like just cranking it from first gear into fifth and being like, here you go, like we're going now. But yeah, so well, first off, the scene between BB-8 and Principal Dickwad, whatever his name is, where he says, "That's a cool box," and BB-8 responds with, "I bought it at the Container Store." What is this conversation? What is a container store? I don't understand any of this. But BB-8's apparently been fired.
Well, I can understand why.
Yeah.
That was before we met at the house.
Yeah, she didn't do herself any favors, let's be honest. And then when it turned out that she was bringing children to sit around a half-naked woman with a knife, I can understand why the school board was like, "We're gonna have to move you on."
I mean, they might have found out about the 50 grand as well. Also, I don't really know when they rang her up and said, "Listen, Elizabeth, Betty, could you come to a hearing?" I don't know why she just didn't went, "I'm eating a sandwich."
Yeah, I'm eating a sandwich. I can't. And then just hang up her phone.
It's gonna be a long one. Yeah.
So I'm
I'm
assuming like that was very funny. Yeah, but I mean, BB-8's been fired, which isn't as funny. Let's be honest.
Well, to be honest with you, when shit happens, which we'll talk about in a minute, the fact that she goes back to the boys kind of almost proves that she's, it's not right that she's getting fired. It's like look at her, like the dichotomy between her and the principal's reactions to it is really stark.
And I didn't realise that the principal was the one who had talked to French earlier in the season, like basically telling him not to hang out with Steve and Buck and Jesse.
See, I thought that was the coach. Yeah,
I thought it was a coach or something. But that's an awful thing for a principal to say. Like, that's what you'd expect, like some kind of lower ranking teacher to maybe make snide comments like that, but a principal, it's like
high school anthropology.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ, this guy is not a good principal, as we see by the end of this episode. But I feel like the implication is also that after this time skip, French's lacrosse scholarship prospects have probably taken a bit of a hit as well.
He is hanging around with the jocks again, though.
He is, that's true. But this is so. Just to take the listeners through my mindset in this room. In this set of scenes, as soon as it cuts to the wide angle shot of French kind of, and he's like reminiscing about the canteen where they are, and my head was immediately like, oh shit, this is the room that Prairie dreamed about. And then I was like, there's a gun in that dream. Are we doing a school shooting thing? Because I did not see this coming. And then it's a weird. I feel like the show knows that you're going to be starting to connect the dots as you're watching this, so it's really weird tonally because it goes from that and then goes to like Jesse getting a weed pillow to Treasure and Steve just hanging out with his girlfriend, and there's this real kind of like calm before the storm feeling to the goings on, and then we cut back to the great shot of Prairie in the bath, the top-down shot of her in the bath with her like limbs sprawled out of it.
She wakes up. She realizes what it is.
A literal jump scare almost, to be like.
Abel lets her go. I think he's gonna regret that. So he lets her go. She runs down. Now I think the distance between the boys at this point, like they're all with their different groups, as you said. Jesse's with the druggies, French is with the jocks, Steve's with his new girlfriend. And Buck is actually with, seems like some artists or I don't know what. Like he's sitting, one of them sitting there drawing. So possibly there weren't really much conversation going on there. Let's be honest. But basically, I think it's the distance there is also to show that the connection that they had through the story of Prairie is still important to them, and they still have an innate connection to each other now. So whenever the shooter comes in, they look at each other and they decide, in order to distract from the shooter in a way, they get up and start doing the movements. And it was interesting. I want to know what you think of it overall in a minute, but I just want to put in the start before we go is that I really got the sense out of all of them that they were doing this with perfect feeling, as Prairie says.
Yeah, no, I think this is very much like the culmination of their months of work together, I think, and it's clear from the way the score kind of swells in this moment. I think so. The way that my head was working at this point, I was first trying to figure out if this was the kid that Steve punched in the throat. I assume it was, but I don't know if it was a random kid or the the one that had wronged Steve. And my first thought was that, oh, Steve's going to get shot. He's going to kind of like own up to his mistakes, apologize to this kid, get shot, and they're going to have to use the movements to resurrect him, and then Prairie will travel as a kind of result of them doing the movement, doing all 5 movements perfectly. Obviously, that didn't happen. But then you get this.
Before you go on, I just want to say we are going to get a lot of comments of people saying, no, it's not that guy. I actually don't know because I never actually paid too much attention to who that guy was. So let's just say you think it's that guy. I think it's not. So therefore, one of us is correct, one of us is wrong.
And
comment away.
Everybody wins.
Comment away.
Team Konrad. We think it's Throat Punch Boy. I don't know.
Miles.
Miles. That was his name. Yeah.
He looked too tall to be Miles.
Yeah, he did, and he also didn't have any kind of like tracheal bandaging to protect his.
But also,
his
I
broken
in no way
throat.
Yeah, but I in no way would have punched this guy in the throat. I probably would have tackled him from behind. So Miles had more of a throat punchy vibe to him. You know.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. This guy was more of a tackle while he's not looking kind of vibe. But the kind of emotion of the scene swells in a really beautiful way, actually. So BBA seeing Principal Dickwad like getting some kids out and then running himself, which I mean. I suppose it's difficult. I don't want to be too harsh to this character because it's hard to say what you would do in this situation until you're placed.
That's probably
in
the protocol. That's probably
yeah.
He got some the ones he was without, and then he gets to safety.
Like, is he actually going to benefit anyone by running into the cafeteria? I don't know. I don't know what the kind of protocol.
He might just escalate the situation.
Yeah, it might escalate it. It might just put himself in danger needlessly without actually helping any of the kids. So I don't want to be too harsh to him for quote unquote running away. What I will say is that BBA refusing to do that and being like, no, I've got to go help my boys is a very sweet moment for that character, and feels very earned and feels very, very earnest. Really worked for me that. And then the when the shooter comes into the cafeteria, you get that moment of Steve and French and Buck and Jesse and BBA exchanging a knowing look, and then springing to their feet as one. The score swells really emotively, and they start doing the movements. This is a sign of how well it worked for me that I would slightly question what they were doing the movements for. Like you've said, it was for just as a distraction.
My head said
but I wonder whether there is some kind of innate sense of channeling their will to stop the shooter from doing anything that's going on there as well. But either way, like, it totally worked for me. It felt like they were doing the motions in perfect synchronization, and yeah, it's this great emotional climax to the episode that's then suddenly punctuated by a literal gunshot as they tackle the kid, or as one of the canteen staff tackles the kid.
Yeah, and it's also the first time we properly see, and it's focused on for the whole time, the movements from start to finish.
Yeah,
and I think this the choreography that's been put into them, and like how otherworldly they are. I think the more you see them, the more you appreciate them. In my mind, I actually really like them, and I love the guttural sounds. I love the strange movements. I love how.
What's your favorite movement?
I think it's this one.
Okay, I'm trying to remember it, but there's one where they do like a hiss. They're like like that.
Oh yeah,
that's a good one.
I think we're safe to say this now. Back in the early episodes, I think it was episode 2. We know the episode where they were sitting around the table with the author. Whatever episode that was.
Yeah.
Well, Prairie does this while she's at the table, like as if she's got a headache, and it's sort of it's one of the movements.
One of the movements. That's great. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't clock that at the time, obviously. But that's
in my season 1 theory brain. I was thinking to myself, you know how I said to you before that I was kind of thinking original angel God. Someone actually said in the comments that maybe original angel means Satan, which is interesting. But I actually was thinking like the God thing, and then I was like, oh, are the movements literally things that happened in Prairie's life? You know what I mean? Like that she did that at the table one time, so it comes from her. Yeah, I think
great.
Maybe it was So who knows? But yeah. So I think I really enjoyed it. The way it was edited together as well with the music. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like there's a few moments which there's some TV that I watch that I have to cry at. There's other TV which is really emotional and effective that if I want to cry I can. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can choose to be taken with it, and this is a moment which I can choose to be taken with, as well as Scott being revived in episode 5. If I want to, it's not one that gets me crying every time, no matter what. But if I really focus and get in the moment, I can get there. So basically, I really love the editing. I think that the way that there was one moment, I think it was, they showed us the movements, and they would cut between the different people doing the movements, and it was always at the same moment, so it was always like, it was just a continuation of the last one. There was one moment at the beginning of the movements, which they doubled a movement a little bit of the Rafiki double lift.
Yeah.
Or the triple lift. That didn't really... lifts up Simba 3 times. It didn't happen at all, except for maybe an inkling of one time, because I think they were trying to make it seamless. There was one little moment where I think they lingered a tiny bit too long, or maybe that was the decision they chose for a reason or whatever. But yeah, I think it was really, really effective, and I'm glad that this had that you enjoyed this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it does come out of nowhere a little bit. I think when you go back and rewatch that vision she had with the cafeteria in the last episode, or I think it was the last episode, I believe, at the very beginning. It is very clear what's coming if you look at that. Like I think you literally see like a tray, like a cafeteria tray with knife and fork on it falling to the ground. Yeah. So when I rewatched it, I was really clear what was happening, which is cool. But yeah, anything else you wanted to add before we get into the very end? So obviously, Prairie gets shot.
Prairie gets shot right in the chest, which doesn't seem great. I don't know how you're getting an NDE out of that. Like that seems like very much a just death experience. What you would get from that, but
you can actually see it when they're doing the movements. You can see in one of the really wide shots. You can see in the background Prairie like coming up to the window,
approaching,
which I thought was cool. Okay. Steve chases after the thing. She's in the ambulance.
Calls her Angel for the first time.
Calls her Angel. She says, it's worked. I have the will. And then Steve's like, oh my god, it is working. And he's like, take me with you. And then it ends. OA comes on screen. And then it fades into another scene where she is in a white room and she's like sort of waking up or whatever. And she says, I don't know, is she waking up or is she already awake? I'm not sure. But anyway, she looks up and she says to someone off camera, Homer?
So I've got a couple of thoughts here. I don't think the person she's speaking to is Homer. Mm-hmm. I do think she has travelled at this point, though. I think the NDE that she has experienced as part of, by being shot in the chest, I think has been crucial to her kind of stepping through to another dimension. But I don't think she's in... I don't know if she is actually in another dimension, though. I feel like the show is going to stay fairly grounded. So I think we're staying on Earth. I think that's where she's waking up. But I think she has, slipped through to another place as part of this experience.
Do you mean like one of those universes that's like sort of... Oh, you mean a physical another place within the same world?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think they're going to go crazy sci-fi with it, just because they've been so refined with the kind of sci-fi elements. Like basically that a place on the rings of Saturn where Katoon hangs out is basically the only true sci-fi I guess it's not even really science fiction. It's just kind of like fantasy and magic. To be honest,
sci-fant.
Yeah. So that's really the only stuff we've seen. So I'd be really surprised if they were suddenly like, you've travelled to another dimension where the planet is ruled by dogs. Or
so you think she's gone to another dimension, but it's just the Earth again. Is that what you're saying? I don't really understand what you mean.
So I think she's definitely the end. So she is where she has woken up. Isn't where that ambulance took her. Like she got in that ambulance and she has, through the movements that were performed and the fact she's going through another NDE, I think she is waking up somewhere else. She is disappearing from that ambulance and waking up somewhere else. The idea of like traveling through dimensions, I don't know where I fall on that yet, but I think from our perspective, where she wakes up in season 1 is still going to be Earth. Whether it's another dimension Earth or the same Earth. I'm not sure yet, but I think for all intents and purposes, it will look the same as the Earth that we expect it to look like. But I think she's not making the full trip to that hospital. That's my feeling.
I will point out that it, like, just for your sort of your own thoughts, it does say multiple times throughout this season that there are multiple universes that layer on top of each other.
Yeah.
And they literally use the word dimension.
Yeah, no, so that's why I'm kind of using it as well, but I don't really know how that's going to manifest in this show yet. Like, you know, is going to another dimension, does it look exactly the same, or are there slight differences? Is it as like kind of physical as a different timeline, or is it something more abstract than that? I'm not sure yet, but some fuckery definitely went on in that ambulance. I'm confident of that.
There was a lot of comments throughout this whole season, like, I'm assuming from Konrad's, possibly not, who were referring to this as like sliders, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen a portal yet.
No portal, which I'm very disappointed about.
Yeah, so I'm not asking you to predict again whether there'll be a portal, but I'm just saying those people who've been listening and saying it's like sliders. If this is all it is, as Konrad says, if someone like moves from one place to another through the movements in some way, are you satisfied with that, or do you want a portal?
I think so. I'd like as much as I'd like a portal, if it turns out to look like sliders where it ages quite poorly, I'd rather they just not do it and then just cut to another scene.
Okay, gotcha. I think we've covered most things. I will just say before we go, when I first watched this, I'm not going to say anything about the second season. When I first watched this season, another reason why I thought maybe it could be a good one and done is because when she woke up in the white room at the end, I thought there was two ways to view that as well. If you were to view it as the end of the show, it could be viewed as like she was in heaven. One thing. Another thing is that it could be viewed like she's in a mental institution. Yeah,
and I think that, you know, those were definitely two places that my mind went as well. Like, oh, has she just been, you know, institutionalized? Because, you know, she's like clearly suffering some form of
dukes.
Suffering some form of mania, or you know, a hospital potentially as well. But I think it's neither. I think it's just a brightly lit room made to look like that will the saturation will or the brightness will lower at the beginning of the next season, and we'll see she's in a relatively normal room with somewhere else.
All right, okay, gotcha. Do you want to get in the roundup?
Yeah, let's do it.
IMDb rating 8.4.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go slightly lower, but still in the 8s somewhere. Low 8s, I think I'd say. I'm torn on this episode because, as I say, the good stuff. So the ending, the scene where they bring Evelyn, or they cure Evelyn, those were fantastic scenes, and you know, there's some great stuff with Abel and Nancy as well. I think there was a couple of bits in this that didn't really work for me, which is what drags it down, but ultimately it was still, you know, a really good episode.
Awesome. Okay, so what have you got in terms of theory? So we'll start off go through your theories that have been concluded.
Okay.
In the Konrad's Theory Matrix segment.
That was my jingle for it.
Let's do it. So we have to go into a segment saying let's do it. We never don't. So, all right. So let's go through then one at a time. You said there's around 10 of them. Konrad's theories that have been concluded this season, and we'll see how you're looking in terms of this.
Okay, I haven't actually scored this yet, so this is going to be, or got my formula in place to even count this, so it's not going to be a perfect situation. And for those of you who haven't experienced this before, welcome to the Theory Matrix. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Okay, theory the first. This was proposed in the first episode. I could have really concluded this at any point, but I left it until the end of the season. Near-death experiences will be a key part of this show.
Whoa. Now that is a correct theory.
Yeah. Bang on, I believe.
Well done. Well done.
Okay. this was also proposed in the first episode, concluded in the next episode. The OA didn't leave home willingly.
Didn't leave home willingly. Incorrect.
Yeah. Bugger. That's all I got to say about that. She did. She very much did, and she wrote.
She literally did.
A very. She didn't even proofread that letter she wrote for Nancy and Abel. Like there were spaces missing all over the thing. So she not only did she leave willingly, but
she was
left in a hurry.
blind, Konrad.
That is a fair point, actually. She was blind. I forget that she was blind at any point because it feels like it was so long ago. but that is a fair point. I feel bad now. Sorry, young Prairie. You were writing that letter while blind. Okay, so this is the last one from the first episode. This was concluded in episode 3. By nearly dying, you are able to travel somewhere, perhaps to the weird astral projection place we saw with the lady speaking Arabic.
Yeah, again, another layup, but it is correct, so we have to give it to you.
I'll take them. A tap in and a 30-yarder, they get you the same amount of points. So
I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will just say, I always laughed out loud when you made that theory, because even though it is true in this show, it's hilarious to me because it really rings true on a big incorrect theory you had for Dark. If I'm not going to go too much into it, but there's certain things to do with Noah, certain things to do with methods of exiting a cycle, we'll say. Yeah.
Well, listen. Yeah, this is like wish fulfillment for me. It's like all those incorrect theories I had for Dark are coming home to roost now. There's 3 for. Oh no, there's actually a few more. I'll go through these now, and we'll address them afterwards. So first one from episode 2. This doctor has a questionable set of ethics and will abuse OA.
You came up with that theory while watching the episode, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So there's a couple. So for full disclosure for this, there are a couple about Hap being a piece of shit that were essentially confirmed in the same episode I proposed them. So I have put them in here, but I'm happy to debate as to whether they should be scored or not.
I'm happy to give you a point for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another one which seems like exactly the same thing, so I don't know. We'll decide whether I've just written it down twice and should write it off. But the next one, this was confirmed in episode 4. OA will get her eyesight back through another NDE.
Yep. Well done.
Absolutely fucking swishing these at the moment, but
yeah,
there's a lot of open ones though, which may not. There's some big swings, is all I'll say this season. So this one, I think this is just a copy of the one before the last, but this was proposed in episode 2 as well, and also included in episode 2. Hap is 100% a bad guy. I think that was more like stream of consciousness theory writing.
Well, I think the fact that you said Hap will abuse Prairie, we have to write this theory that he's a bad guy off, because otherwise we're kind of implying that you don't think someone abusing someone is a bad thing to do.
Listen, don't you apply your modern morals to me.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah, you did this 3 weeks ago.
All right, okay. It's grayed out. We're forgetting about it. I'm happy with that. Okay, so this is the last one from episode 2. And this was concluded in the next episode. The tanks are filled with water to partially drown the occupants and trigger an NDE.
No.
Why I order? I was so close with that. I was right about the method, just not the I guess I was right about the method of doing it, just not the specifics.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got 4 correct so far. How many incorrect did you get?
2 or 3? That's the second incorrect one.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, are you writing these down?
I'm just keeping a score so we can say what you got.
Make sure keep me on the straight and narrow. Okay, so the next one, this is going to be a contentious one. I can already feel it in my bones. This is proposed. So everything in episode 3 is still open at the moment, so I'm not going to go through them right now. This was proposed in episode 4, and I concluded it in episode 6. This place looks a lot like Nessus from Destiny 2, so I'm saying this is on another planet.
Not technically on. Although I am going to give you the point for that.
Oh, I gave myself an orange for that, to be honest, because it was not exactly right.
I think you're being very harsh on yourself there.
Okay.
I think I'm going to give you that point for that.
I'll take it.
Like, I think obviously it's much more It's not like physical, if you know what I mean. But maybe it is actually. But I think like we have to give it to you.
Okay.
You noticed the symbolism from a game, like the set design of a game, and then said what was going to come up in the show later based off of that. You even said Saturn when we were talking about that.
Yeah, I did. That's true. That is true. All right, I'm happy to take the points for that. Okay, and then this was also in episode 4. This was concluded in episode 7. It's a big one, and it's a classic. OA equals Original Angel.
Yeah, you got it.
Got it. I feel like the show does kind of lead you to that one, though. Like, you know, you're seeing people with wings. They give you original, so it's kind of...
Yeah, I have said before about my thoughts about the idea of that name being always interpretation of that, but you still get the point for it.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
That's sort of a meta-analysis on my part. I think, you know, we'll see in season 2. We'll see.
Yeah, very well. This could go badly wrong in season 2, is all I'll say for some of this.
The thing is, some of this I have to be very careful. Like some of the stuff that I still theorize about the show because obviously it got cancelled. I have to be careful telling you what my theories are because it might give away something that happens in season 2. But I don't think my questioning of that really does.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to say whether it gets concluded or not. All right.
Okay, so a couple more from episode 4. First one was concluded in episode 6. Those scars are something to do with angel wings.
The way you've worded that, it's almost correct because they are to do with angel wings in the fact that the designers made them look like angel wings. Like...
Yeah, I mean, there's definite symbolism, you know, in that imagery. But I said no for this.
Yeah,
because I, if I'm honest with myself, I thought we were literally going to see a scene where she tears her own wings off, like in that Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And another one. This was concluded in episode 7. I think it would have been a better idea, but she had other plans. BBA spending spree montage.
No.
No, didn't happen. Didn't happen.
No. There's not enough wolf jumpers in the world for BBA.
Oh god, can you imagine if she got one of those Homer wolf jumpers?
Yeah,
should be a force to be reckoned with. And then, so the last 3 that are confirmed. So this one was in episode 6. It was proposed and confirmed in episode 8. That cop is getting killed by Hap.
Yeah, that was a big correct one as well. Well done.
You establish a cop with a sympathetic backstory. He rumbles the bad guy. Come on. We've all seen action movies. We know what's happening to that cop.
He's going away. Yeah.
At least he went with Evelyn though. That would have been more tragic if he'd have died without them bringing Evelyn there. So you just know there's this woman with ALS. Slowly.
Or even more tragic, he kills Stan but leaves Evelyn alive when she's been healed.
Oh, that'd be horrific. Actually, I don't think Hap has that kind of.
Hap's too lovely for that, you know.
Yeah, he's a kind
he thinks
killer.
That's obvious. You know, that's too obvious being an evil person.
Yeah, that's malicious. He's not malicious.
He's a scientist. You know?
Okay, last 2. So this was proposed in episode 7, concluded in episode 8. Nancy did know about Prairie's letter and lied about it to Abel.
Well done.
Yeah. And last one. This is, I don't know about this one. This is a bit of a gimme, to be honest. But again, episode 7, concluding episode 8. That dream is going to come to fruition next episode.
Well, I think it probably was a bit of a gimme in that it was going to come to fruition at some point. The fact that you
they weren't showing you it for no reason.
Yeah, the fact that you said next episode, it still is a bit of a gimme because it's a bit of a weird thing to lead to the following series. Yeah, having said that, the fact that you did hone it in on next episode, you've been burnt in the past by saying things that happen in the next episode when they don't.
That is true, yeah.
So when you get one right, we have to give it to you.
Okay. All right, well, that's not a bad start, I will say. I think, what does that put me on? Like +5 or something?
+5, yep.
+5, sure. Nice. But
that's
yeah,
better than Dark. I think Dark you were like -3 or something.
Yeah, I was.
-6. Something.
But I mean, you know, to give people a brief, I won't go through. Oh, I've just accidentally deleted one. I won't go through all of these, but to give the listeners a brief insight into what the theory matrix, the unconfirmed theories in the theory matrix are looking like. We have such theories as some of the other captives have been sent to another plane universe permanently. This show is going to a preacher-style God is missing situation. Riz Ahmed's character is shady as hell and was up to something bad in Prairie's house. What else we got? August was Rachel's sister. I don't know if we'll ever get that confirmed. That's just not being mentioned again. So this might be another one of those situations like the Torch in Dark, where I've just honed in on something that's never gonna
The Torch.
never gonna be mentioned.
Yeah. There is a theory about August that I read on the OA subreddit recently that I don't want to share here. I think I probably could share it here at this point, but I don't want to just in case I pollute your mind in any way. So
Okay, I appreciate
I'm looking
saying
forward
I'm
to
polluted.
talking to you about it. I don't want you to be polluted. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you keeping me
I'm not a
pollutant
polluter.
free. But yeah, so there's a lot of game left to play here. A lot of theories still on the boards that could from season 1 that could go either way, I think.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, like, I really wasn't expecting you to come out of the first season with a plus, which is really well done. I'd be really impressed if you get to the end of a 2-season show that was cancelled in a positive. That would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe you're being a bit too conservative here, Konrad, in terms of
Yeah,
your guesses.
I think I definitely have been quite conservative with like I look back at some of these and I'm a bit like, some of these are a bit easy, to be honest. Like I've got to start swinging for the fences a bit more. But
Yeah.
as I say, there's some big ones that haven't been confirmed or denied yet. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so thanks very much for that. Let's now go into the listener questions.
yeah, let's do it.
A stranger from the outside.
As always, guys, leave questions underneath this video on YouTube if you want to ask Konrad a question, or if you're an audio listener, or if you're not, you can send us an email at adpodmail@gmail.com and give us a question. Our first question this week actually comes from someone through adpodmail@gmail.com. They sent us an email. I will say before I read it, it's from someone called Bert. Hello, Bert. Thank you very much for listening. But before I read it, I just want to say I replied to Bert and I signed it James. Now, it's funny because I just did that naturally and I just realized Bert doesn't know who responded to him. It was me. So there you go.
That's textbook. We should just sign all our emails James now. Just be like, I don't know. That gives both of us plausible deniability if we do anything bad.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Now, okay, so here's Bert's question.
Okay.
What did you think of the books? Okay. So let's talk about the books first, because Bert goes down a path here that we weren't going to go down, but I will go down it with him.
Okay.
But the books first of all, Bert says, well, let's run through them, right? So we got Homer and the Iliad.
Yeah,
We've
the
got
Iliad,
the
yeah.
Angels book. We've got what else do we have?
I didn't actually notice the others, to be honest. Like, I'm assuming they had something to do
We
with...
had an NDE book.
Yeah, there was a book on NDEs, and I don't
There was a
remember what
fourth
the other
one.
was.
Yeah, but I think for me basically, Konrad, you can back this up. It really was just books that were very much about what she was doing, like what she was talking about, what she was really. The books were serving there to almost imply that we could potentially in some way believe that she got all of the information.
Yeah,
from these
it was the
books.
Kaiser Soze reveal in Usual Suspects. You know, when the cop's looking at the court notice board and seeing everything that Kevin Spacey's character has revealed to him over the last 2 hours was just behind him on a notice board. It's not. I don't think it's implying that she was necessarily doing it maliciously, but it's just designed to sow that seed of doubt.
Exactly. And moving from one man's name who I didn't want to hear today to another. So this is the second question. Why was Ilyas Rahim in Nancy and Abel's house? Now, we didn't know that name.
Oh, well,
because
there you go.
it's
Yeah.
Riz Ahmed.
Oh, well, I mean, let's be honest. The chances of me remembering that are incredibly low. So,
Tell me, do you remember it now?
Ilyas Rahim?
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. I'm very good at remembering things that happened 30 seconds ago, but beyond that, I make no promises. He was up to some shady shit. I mean, he's okay. What do we know about him being assigned to her? Like, she hasn't actually met any like FBI people, has she? That I should say, he's not like been assigned to her through any official channel that we know of. I think the cops...
He has, I think, because remember at the very beginning, FBI was talking to Abel and Nancy.
Oh, were those
in their living
FBI
room.
that were talking to them? I thought those were just cops.
I assumed they were.
Oh, okay, fine. So I mean, maybe he does work for the FBI, but I think he definitely has an ulterior motive, because otherwise, what is his character doing? Like, what is his character arc at this point? Like, he's just like his character. I've already forgotten his name. I was about to call him Riz Ahmed. Like, but his character arc, he doesn't have an arc at the moment. It's a flat line. It's like he seems like a nice guy who's helping Prairie get through some stuff, which is fine. You can have supporting characters that are just one note there to help a main character facilitate some change. But I feel like Prairie has very much been removed from Riz Ahmed's sphere of influence now, which means his character is either not going to be in the show anymore, or he's going to change quite dramatically. And the fact that he's showing up in Prairie's house at night when no one is there makes me think that it's probably going to be the latter rather than the former.
Okay, interesting. In terms of the YouTube questions here, guys, we do have about almost 10 of them. I'm going to be just picking out a couple because we have went quite long today due to the Konrad's Theory Matrix. I'm sure you won't mind. So if there's a question that you really wanted answered, put it on the next week's one and I'll hopefully get around to it. So first of all, before we ask a question, just as a little... I have to include this because Vic Disco has said, great job as always, guys. Konrad, quick question. When French found those books, did you think for a brief moment that Prairie was Kaiser Soze?
I was expecting it to cut to Prairie. They should have kept her blind until this point, because then they could have done like the pan up as she's walking away, takes off her blind glasses, throws them away, and like gets in this convertible and speeds off. And it's that's how this series should have ended. But, yeah.
We could have.
Me and Vic Disco are of one mind here. When as soon as I saw that, I was like, motherfucking usual suspects.
Yeah. Okay. So Marvin says, "Hey, this time I remember something specific from this particular episode. So I've got a question. So you've probably discussed this to death in the episode. We actually haven't really discussed this to death, but I like the pun, Marvin. Either way, on a scale of from never going to appear again to totally fine, how dead is Prairie by the end?"
I mean, she got shot in the heart. Like, it's like she's not dead. I don't think, because I'm fairly sure. You know, the fact that she's like, oh, it's happening, and Steve is like, take me with you, implies to me that it's something they've discussed. I mean, I guess we've seen them discussing it in broad terms, and that they kind of know what's going to happen. So she's not dead, but I will say, I mean, we've seen Prairie take, she's got stabbed in the leg, took that like a champ, but there's a big old gap between getting stabbed in the leg with a pencil and getting shot in the center of the chest with an assault rifle and just still standing up and being like, it's fine. So I wonder, a part of me actually wonders whether the movements the guys were doing kind of prevented her from taking lethal damage from that, because that's the kind of thing where, like, if you're shot in the center of the chest, you're just dead. You don't like, oh, maybe I'll make it to hospital. Like, your heart will explode. Like, you're just not going to be alive anymore when that happens. So, yeah, I don't know. It's the answer.
Okay, so, let me see. Always the Foreigner says, this is the last one I'm going to do, guys. As Anthony pointed out last week, Riz Ahmed has no problem straight up lying about conversations with the OA. So who's to say that he knew enough about her narrative to plant evidence of doubt? So I think Always Foreigner is sort of implying here that possibly, do you think Riz Ahmed planted the books?
That's an interesting idea. Actually, I hadn't considered that. Possibly. What would his? I've got to like Occam's razor this though. Like, what would his motivation be to do that? Like, is he trying to discredit the research? Does he know and he's trying to keep people off the scent? I guess that would be an interesting direction for his character to go in, and that would tie in with him planting the books. It does certainly seem weird, I will say, that Prairie just has those books lying around. We've never seen her reading the Iliad. She's more of a buying wolf sweaters in Target kind of kind of girl than like, and it's I guess you could make the argument that, I mean, Homer is obviously very explicitly named Homer, but it's a loose metaphor. Like, I don't think you could I don't think you necessarily need to have read the Iliad to construct a character like Homer out of it. It seems like an odd book choice if it was hers. So yeah, that's a good point, and definitely something for me to mull over.
Okay, awesome. Right, guys, there we are. That's season 1 of the OA done. We'll be back with episode 1 of season 2 next week. Konrad, final closing thoughts, as short or as long as you want.
I hope that wherever Hap travelled to, and whoever he took with him, he took his earphones.
Yeah, he needs those earphones. Well, as long as he's got saliva, he'll have earphones. They're sort of never the two shall part.
He grabbed as many packets of the jelly made from his saliva as he possibly could before he travelled.
Yeah, like, I think what they didn't show us was before Prairie got in the car, whenever he was taking her and dumping her on the side of the road, he actually smothered her in that jelly because he's like, you might hit your head on the way in the car, you know.
Yeah. And then he just like grabs her on the back of the shirt and just like a fucking luge, just threw her down the street, and she slid for about 2 miles before coming to a stop.
Yeah, but she could hear perfectly. Right, guys. Thanks very much for listening. Make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel, The Culture Cave, on podcasting apps if you want to listen there. If you want to give the video a like, that would be great. Email adpodmail@gmail.com. I didn't mention the Discord at the beginning, actually. We do have a Discord. I'll put the link in the description. Lots of cool dark discussions, as well as movie discussions, as well as OA discussions going on there. Also, if you want to join the Discord and start giving ideas what we could do next on the on this, I did mention we do really want to do Westworld. Whether it'll be next or not, we're not sure, but we do want to do it eventually, so maybe that will be the next one we do. We're not 100% sure yet, though. But yeah, thanks very much, guys, and we'll catch you later. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. The After Dark podcast has been a Culture Cave production. Please subscribe on audio apps as well as on YouTube at The Culture Cave. Join us next week as Konrad journeys further into the unknown.